Hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the organisers for inviting me here today. I work for a company called RAND Europe. It's a not-for-profit public policy research organisation, which is a complete mouthful, but what it means is we sit somewhere between academia and consultancy to do pieces of work that are of sort of policy orientated, looking at societal challenges. And the work that I want to present to you here today is a piece that we did for the European Parliament last year and was published early this year about mapping smart cities across Europe. Okay, so there are challenges that are facing our world today, and particularly in the developed and in urbanized areas. We have issues of overcrowding, inequality, energy issues, and unemployment. We've touched on some of them this morning, and I think these really highlight why there is a need for this development and for smart or any other type of technological advance for the future. So the other part of this problem, we've heard about the aging population as well, and also is the volume of people living in cities. So this is some data from the WHO observatory, and shows that approximately now we've hit the 50% of population are living in urban areas, and this is set to increase to up to 70% by 2050. So we were asked to undertake a study that mapped the locations of smart cities across Europe. It's by no means perfect. It was really a starting point, and what I hope it will do today is stimulate some discussion with you about what defines these things and how we can measure them. So first of all, we had to come up with a sort of definition for smart cities, and I was surprised by how many contradictory or sort of overlapping definitions there were. So the way that we've defined it is to say that as part of a smart city are smart initiatives, and those need to focus on one or more of these 6 characteristics and should be based on the technology. So it's the emergence of digital infrastructure with a hard infrastructure, as well as the inclusion of people and the multi-stakeholder element. So we defined these 6 characteristics, which are fairly standard in a lot of literature that you'll see. And so we're looking at smart mobility, things like bike schemes or Oyster cards, the use in society of apps and enabling people to make informed decisions by the transfer of data. Smart governance, where you release the data and allow people to access that and make informed decisions. Mobility and energy. So from our study, what we looked at was cities of over 100,000 in population where they had 2 or more smart city characteristics covered by initiatives. So there are broadly sort of the 2 types of cities that we were seeing here. There are those that have concentrated on one major initiative that covers multiple components, and then there's those that have specific initiatives set up to address different things. So mapping across this, we've looked at on total numbers where you see the most smart cities. And interestingly, this maps to some of the data that was shown this morning about the mayoral covenant. And we do see a lot of cities that have smart initiatives set up, especially in Spain and Italy. But if we take this into perspective and we look at the number of cities that these countries have with over 100,000 in population, the graph does change slightly. So here you can see that Spain doesn't do quite as well because it's actually got a lot more cities, so the percentage of those, or the ratio of which are smart, is lower. So looking across these different population bands, and I'm aware that this is limited in only focusing on those over 100,000 in population, we have looked at sort of the ratio, and you can see that the capital cities, the biggest ones, are sort of the early adopters of smart cities, and the majority of those have these sorts of initiatives going on. But there are still doing a lot of work in these other brackets. But the interesting thing to me is, and it's been echoed in what's been said this morning, is that a lot of these are still in the pilot stage. So here we have over 50% have either just a strategy or a policy about it, or have a project plan and vision. And what worries me is about the potential disconnect between all of these pilots happening and the learning that we can take and build up going forward. So coming back to these 6 characteristics by which we've defined smart cities, you can see that a lot of the ones, so approximately a third, looking at that graph, of the initiatives focus on environment. That doesn't mean exclusively environment, but have an environmental element to them. And in particular, we saw that smart mobility and smart people were often in combination with other characteristics within an initiative. So approximately a third of the initiatives that we looked at only covered one characteristic. But you can see that as the size of the population grow, the scale of the project is covering more characteristics, meaning often a larger project that aims to hit multiple characteristics, often through combining it with other cities through consortia and those sorts of things. So here shows the distribution of the characteristics across Europe, and the maps are very small once they're all put up there together, but I just want to give you a flavour for the fact that the different types of initiative are not clustered in any particular locations. So having looked at these cities and mapped where they were, part of our brief from the European Parliament was to look at scale up and reproducibility of these. And here's where we really struggled, partly because I believe that the factors that influence the smart cities are based on the context specific to that city. So the geography, I mean, does it have a port? Is it near mountains? What is the context within which they're working? The politics at a supranational, a national, and a local level. What's the desire and the appetite for it? The need for sustainable growth, where that fits in the agenda, linking into the policy, and also the different stakeholders that are engaged. You know, as a city, who's got buy-in to it? Who is involved? Is it the IBMs, the Ciscos, or do you have local partners? So the mapping exercise took place based on available information online, which is in itself a limitation. But what we were surprised by was the lack of current information in certain places. And in terms of mapping, it's important to have that update of information available to make those decisions and to promote those things that are going on. And also, mirroring a point that was made earlier, in terms of evaluation, without having the baseline data against which we are monitoring progress, it is very difficult to understand what progress we have made. And it's about collecting the right information, and I'm hoping that my colleagues this afternoon will come on to talk about the sorts of metrics and indicators you can use there. And then coming back to this point on the previous slide, it's about the unique nature. So what specifically are you trying to do? There are these two models that I've mentioned earlier. You can either have the characteristics that converge around a single initiative, or you can have your different initiatives on different components. So overall, looking at the different initiatives that we reviewed and thinking about sort of the strategy and the structure within which they came up with, we came up with 3 key components to a successful smart city. And obviously these would be supported by ongoing evaluation and assessment. But in general, we think it's a combination of the vision, the people, and the process. So to talk you through those, the vision. So the vision, the general aim is about improvement of quality of life, and particularly in the built-up urban environment, making it a place where people want to live, they want to work, and they have a good quality of life. But what's beyond that? What are the specific aims and targets for your community? And here in particular, talking about the different actors and stakeholders that would be engaged, it's important to get buy-in and consensus to this vision from them in order to create the output that you're desiring. And a few practical points about the process. Often these bring together multiple actors and often even across cities and locations. So it's really important to have the one point of contact, the project management perspective, that sort of brings that together and sort of focuses people. There's that need for ongoing evaluation that I mentioned before. And I think a slightly different point is that with the use of data, and in particular open data, and with the convergence of different stakeholders, particularly from the public and private sector, there's a need to consider knowledge management in terms of privacy and security of that data. And finally, as you're all aware, it's about the people that you involve. So the important thing here is to secure the participation of different stakeholders who are affected by the issues. In the projects that we looked at, there's often the combination of public, private stakeholders and also concerned individuals. And the way that we've characterised it here is that there are these 2 options. There's the top-down approach from the city council or the municipality, whatever, down to the initiatives, which filters into the people. And then there's your bottom-up approach. There are advantages for both. The left-hand way produces a more coordinated response, whereas the right-hand option with the bottom-up approach allows the engagement to tackle the problem that the people in the city see that they have. So I've tried to cover quite a lot of different things within this, and there is a broader report that has been published by the European Parliament that I would direct you to if you have any questions, or of course you can ask me.